The year is 1656, and the scene is Velázquez's working chamber in the Alcazar of Madrid, an artist's studio folded inside the machinery of the empire. Here, Diego Velázquez stands before his canvas, brush poised, painting King Philip IV and Queen Mariana of Austria. Yet the monarchs appear only indirectly, their presence caught like an apparition in the mirror at the back of the room. At the center of the composition stands their 5-year-old daughter, the Infanta Margarita Teresa, who seems to have entered with her maids of honor, Las Meninas, and a small retinue of attendants. Light gathers around her, as if guided by the invisible gaze of her parents. Velázquez evokes a fleeting vision of domestic harmony, dynastic continuity, and the fragile hope embodied in this solitary child. But the portrait's moment of poise belies a harsher truth. The year 1656 found Philip IV aged 51 and physically exhausted. His long reign had drained Spain of wealth and power. The treasury was effectively bankrupt. Winters brought freezing rooms in the royal palace for want of firewood, and fish served on gold platters often arrived spoiled. Marsella. Behind the glitter of ceremony lay a nation in catastrophic decline. Spain's Habsburg dynasty had ruled for 5 generations, repeatedly intermarrying to preserve alliances. The resulting hereditary strain was nowhere more apparent than in Philip IV himself, inclined toward indecision, deeply dependent on his ministers, and privately tormented by the conflict between his devout Catholicism and his compulsive womanizing. Chroniclers attributed to him dozens of illegitimate children and a trail of mistresses rivaling even that of Louis XIV. He confessed his lapses in overwrought letters to a nun, vowing repeatedly to reform, only to lapse again and beg her to perform penance on his behalf. Philip had inherited the remains of an empire on which, by tradition, the sun never set. Yet under his governance, Spain lost Flanders, Portugal and Catalonia broke from Madrid, French armies ravaged Castilian territory, and English naval power threatened the flow of silver from the Americas. While the vast empire had already been overextended under Charles V and Philip II, their political acuity and relentless administrative discipline had sustained the illusion of strength. That aura had evaporated by Philip IV's time. His reign became an uninterrupted sequence of military defeats, financial collapses, and political miscalculations. To the burdens of state was added an unyielding ideological legacy, the Habsburgs' dream of a Catholic Europe unified under their leadership. After the 30 Years' War ended in 1648, the Austrian branch abandoned this ambition as unrealistic. Philip IV, however, clung to the old vision, siphoning Spain's dwindling resources into futile campaigns. Increasingly withdrawn, he retreated for long stretches to El Escorial, the Habsburg mausoleum, to seek solace in prayer and mysticism. His sense of personal failure grew heavier with age. Las Meninas is the only painting by Velázquez in which the king and queen appear together, though here they are little more than reflections, an apt metaphor for a marriage strained by politics, duty, and disillusionment. Mariana of Austria arrived in Madrid as a 13-year-old bride, sent from Vienna to marry her uncle, a man 30 years older. Contemporary descriptions portray her as lively and good-humored, but she was soon swallowed by the rigid ceremonial life of the Spanish court. Protocol dictated every gesture, every movement, every syllable she spoke. The purpose of a queen was singular, to embody majesty and produce an heir. Her pregnancies were relentless and tragic. By 1656, 7 years into the marriage, she had produced only the Infanta Margarita and a series of stillborn infants. Later, she bore 2 sons who died in early childhood, and a third, Charles, the future Charles II, who survived but suffered from severe congenital disabilities. His troubled reign would bring the Spanish Habsburg line to an end. Philip's attention toward Mariana faded quickly. The political alliance her marriage was meant to secure accomplished little. Meanwhile, the young queen's loneliness, homesickness, and repeated miscarriages transformed the spirited girl into what courtiers unkindly termed that mulish German. Her life, once filled with laughter, narrowed into routine and sorrow. When Velázquez painted Las Meninas, Margarita Teresa was the royal couple's only surviving child, a symbol of fragile hopes for a male heir. Even at 5 years old, her posture reflects the rigorous discipline of a Habsburg upbringing. She accepts a jug without glancing at the maid offering it, maintaining complete composure and awareness of her rank. Like nearly everyone else in the composition, she directs her gaze toward the king and queen, imagined just beyond the canvas. She is demonstrating the early mastery of stillness and dignity expected of a future queen consort. The two Meninas beside her came from the highest Castilian noble families. The one who kneels does so not out of affection, but because protocol demanded it. Only a limited number of attendants were even permitted to kneel before royalty. Even the simple act of handing an object required a precise chain of rolls and ritual gestures. The Spanish court was infamous for its suffocating ceremonialism. No European monarchy had stricter etiquette. The more Spain declined, the more fiercely it clung to these forms. Protocol, in fact, could be deadly. Philip III, the king's father, once fell ill after attendants failed to remove an overheated brazier because the only courtier authorized to handle it was absent. The king died days later. To break the monotony of palace life, the Spanish court, more than any other in Europe, maintained a population of jesters, dwarfs, and individuals with physical or cognitive disabilities. Maria Barbola, the German dwarf, and Nicolas de Pertusato, the young Italian dwarf teasing the dog, were officially part of the royal household. They existed outside the court's hierarchy and were often viewed as curiosities rather than full persons. Their presence flattered the nobility by contrast, making the aristocrats appear more refined, more beautiful, more normal. Velázquez, with unusual humanity, painted these figures not as caricatures, but as individuals, alert, self-possessed, occupying real space in the composition. Still, their proximity to the dog underscores their ambiguous status, neither fully included nor fully excluded, tolerated yet unprotected. In the painting, Velázquez wears the Red Cross of the Order of Santiago on his chest. Historically, he had not yet received the knighthood. He was admitted only in 1659, after a protracted investigation into his bloodline. Because his genealogy lacked full documentation, an exemption had to be granted, supported by over 100 witnesses who testified that he had never painted for financial gain, but solely out of loyalty to the king. The cross was almost certainly added to the canvas later by another hand, after the honor was finally secured. The painter's ambitions extended beyond art. 4 years before creating Las Meninas, he sought the post of aposentador mayor, marshal of the royal household, a position high in rank but burdened with exhausting logistical responsibilities. Velázquez knew this well. The post required oversight of bedding, floor matting, firewood, heating, cleaning staff, and the elaborate staging of public ceremonies. Court records from 1657 note that he was owed a full year's salary, 60,000 reals, and that palace sweepers had stopped working due to lack of funds, while firewood for the king's chambers had run out. Travel with the court imposed even heavier strain. Journeys to summer palaces, battlefront encampments, and diplomatic meetings demanded endless administrative labor. In 1660, Velázquez accompanied the court to the French border to arrange the marriage of Philip's daughter, Maria Teresa, to Louis XIV. The trip nearly destroyed him. Writing from Madrid shortly after returning, he said, I have returned worn out by traveling all night and working all day." Within a month, he was dead. In his final years, overwhelmed by duties, he completed very few paintings. Las Meninas, therefore, is not only a portrait of a princess, but the portrait of a world on the brink of collapse. It captures the Habsburg court at its most ceremonious, its most brittle, and its most entrancing, an empire lit by a flash of brilliance, just as the long dusk of Spanish power settled irrevocably over Europe.